In 1953, Germany's Chancellor said the Waffen-SS were soldiers like everybody else. In 1946, the Nuremberg Tribunal had declared them war criminals. Both statements can't be true. So how did a criminal organization erase its past, influence governments, and rewrite history for an entire generation? This is the story of the last battle of the Waffen-SS, and the historians who finally won it back. Collapse. When Germany collapsed in May 1945, the Waffen-SS faced total destruction. At Nuremberg in 1946, the International Military Tribunal declared the SS a criminal organization due to its involvement in the Holocaust, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. Members of the Waffen-SS, except conscripts who comprised about one-third of membership, were denied the rights afforded to other German military veterans. Some faced immediate execution. Others spent years in Allied prison camps. Soviet-captured Waffen-SS personnel faced particularly prolonged detention until the mid-1950s. But the fates of former SS members varied dramatically. High-ranking officers stood trial. Some were hanged. Others received lengthy prison sentences. Yet thousands of lower-ranking members simply melted back into civilian life. They changed their names, burned their uniforms, buried their pasts. The key difference? The Nuremberg judgment exempted conscripts, those forced into service after 1943. This created a crucial loophole. Many veterans were reclassified as lesser offenders or followers if they lacked command roles or direct involvement in atrocities. They underwent questionnaires and hearings. Some paid fines, others served short internments. But as Europe began rebuilding from the ruins, something unexpected happened. The world started to change. The post-war reality. By 1949, a new threat emerged: the Cold War. The Soviet Union detonated its first atomic bomb. Communist North Korea invaded the South. Suddenly, yesterday's defeated enemy looked like tomorrow's necessary ally. The beginning of the Cold War undermined denazification efforts by reviving the idea of fighting Soviet communism, echoing an aspect of Hitler's foreign policy. West Germany, established in 1949, needed stability. It needed workers, administrators, soldiers. The reality was stark. There simply weren't enough untainted professionals to rebuild the country. From the German perspective, rejecting former SS members was seen as politically dangerous, as the estimated 500,000 Waffen-SS veterans represented too large a group to ignore as potential voters. In 1951, Chancellor Konrad Adenauer officially terminated denazification, advocating for reintegration rather than punishment. That same year, former Wehrmacht officers began receiving war pensions. But there was a problem. The Waffen-SS had been declared criminal at Nuremberg. Unlike regular army veterans, SS members were specifically excluded from benefits. This wasn't forgiveness. This was Cold War pragmatism. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower declared in January 1951 that he distinguished between the regular German soldier and Hitler's criminal group. Chancellor Adenauer stated in 1953 that men of the Waffen-SS were soldiers like everybody else. These statements would become ammunition in a much longer battle: veterans and networks. In 1949, the ban on forming veterans associations was lifted. Former SS members saw their opportunity. By late 1950, local groups began forming across West Germany. In 1951, they united under one banner, HAEG, the Mutual Aid Association of former Waffen-SS members. AG was formally established by Otto Kumm, a former SS brigade Führer, and by December 1951, former high-ranking Waffen-SS General Paul Hauser became its first spokesperson. Their objectives were clear: achieve legal recognition, secure pensions, and, most importantly, rehabilitate the historical reputation of the Waffen-SS. HIAG employed multi-pronged historical revisionism and propaganda efforts. The strategy was sophisticated. They didn't deny that crimes happened. Instead, they shifted blame. By the mid-1950s, HIAG had successfully differentiated the Waffen-SS from other SS formations by attributing crimes that couldn't be denied to the Allgemeine SS, the SS Totenkopfverbände, and the Einsatzgruppen. The combat units, they claimed, were just soldiers, honorable warriors who fought for their country. Paul Hauser published a book titled Soldaten wie andere auch, der Weg der Waffen-SS. HIAG claimed to represent up to 2 million potential voters in West Germany. The reality was different. Only about 250,000 former Waffen-SS veterans lived in the country, and only 8% joined HIAG. But the exaggeration worked. Politicians listened. HIAG wasn't just courted by conservatives. Opposition leader Kurt Schumacher also maintained good relations with the organization. Social Democratic politician Helmut Schmidt delivered a speech to Waffen-SS veterans in Hamburg in 1953, acknowledging their combat roles and urging societal reintegration. West German Defense Minister Franz Josef Strauss stated in 1957 that frontline units of the Waffen-SS were included in his admiration for German soldiers of the last World War. The pressure campaign succeeded. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, they portrayed themselves as victims of Allied injustice, of Stalin's brutality, of historical misunderstanding. HIAG claimed during the Cold War that they had organized and led a NATO-like army, and were the first to fight for Europe and Western civilization against Asiatic communist hordes. This was coordinated memory control. ACET 4, the battle over history. For decades, HIAG's version of history goes largely unchallenged in popular culture. Military histories focus on battlefield tactics. Publishers reject works on the Holocaust, claiming readers aren't interested, but historians are slowly accumulating evidence. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, German scholars like Manfred Messerschmitt and Klaus-Jürgen Müller challenged the myth of an apolitical Wehrmacht. Research reveals how deeply the German military was saturated with Nazi ideology. The breakthrough comes in the 1990s. In March 1995, the Hamburg Institute for Social Research opens a traveling exhibition, War of Extermination, Crimes of the Wehrmacht, 1941 to 1944. Using photographs, letters, and diaries from ordinary soldiers, the exhibition demolishes the comfortable fiction that war crimes could be blamed solely on Hitler, the SS leadership, or a few fanatics. The Wehrmacht exhibition sparks intense public controversy across Germany. It demonstrates that the armed forces, the grandfathers, fathers, and uncles of 1990s German society, were deeply involved in genocide and crimes against humanity. The distinction between honorable soldiers and criminal SS collapses under documentary evidence. Historians like Omer Bartov and Wolfram Wette publish comprehensive studies showing how Wehrmacht units participated directly in mass killings, executed prisoners, and provided logistical support for the Holocaust. For the Waffen-SS specifically, the evidence is even more damning. The Nuremberg Tribunal's original judgment stands: SS units were integral to the Nazi killing machine. There is evidence that shooting unarmed prisoners of war was general practice in some Waffen-SS divisions. The attempt to separate combat troops from atrocities is historically indefensible. By the late 1990s, scholarly consensus is clear. No reputable German academic defends the myth anymore. HIAG itself disbands at the federal level in 1992. Local chapters continue meeting. Publications continue into the 2000s and even 2010s. The organization's informal successor maintains commemorative sites for Waffen-SS dead. But HIAG has lost the battle that matters most. The real conflict was no longer legal, it was historical. And in that battle, the evidence speaks for itself. How Germany remembers today. Modern Germany approaches Waffen-SS memory with clear-eyed recognition. Educational institutions teach the organization's role in Nazi crimes as established fact. Memorial policies reject any rehabilitation of the Waffen-SS as a military force separate from Nazi ideology. Veterans cannot appear under SS flags or anthems at official ceremonies. The Bundeswehr, established in 1955 with the principle of innere Führung, internal leadership emphasizing moral accountability, explicitly rejects any connection to the Waffen-SS tradition. It draws its heritage from military reformers who opposed Hitler, not from those who served him. Yet debates continue. In some Eastern European countries, particularly the Baltic states and Ukraine, efforts persist to recast local Waffen-SS units as patriotic resistance fighters against Soviet occupation. The country's official position remains firm. The Waffen-SS was a criminal organization that played a central role in Nazi atrocities, and no amount of selective memory can change that fundamental truth. Conclusion: the Waffen-SS lost the war in 1945, but its final battle over responsibility and memory lasted decades. For 40 years, former members fought to rewrite their place in history. They built organizations, influenced politicians, published books, shaped public discourse. They convinced millions that they were just soldiers. They weren't. And in that battle, history, not veterans, would have the final word. The archives don't lie. The testimonies can't be erased. The evidence is overwhelming. The Waffen-SS was not an honorable fighting force separated from Nazi crimes. It was an integral part of the machinery of genocide. That's the historical verdict. And unlike the myths they created, that verdict is based on evidence. If you found this exploration of post-war memory battles thought-provoking, let me know in the comments what historical topic you'd like us to investigate next. And if you're interested in more untold stories from history, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching.